Thank you very much, Ryan. That was much appreciated. Our third speaker is Susan Hirshberg from the Rural Communities Foundation of Nova Scotia. Susan, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I'm hoping people can hear me. Brady, maybe if you can, just give me a thumbs up. It looks like you can. I'm coming to you today from Makai, the unceded and this is my first time doing this kind of land acknowledgement, ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And actually, what I've been finding about land acknowledgements and my understanding of this whole process is, as I hear them, what it has done is really made me start to think about some very deep questions about exploitation, sustainability, the relationship between them, personal responsibility, reparations, genocide, all of those kinds of highly interconnected issues. And as many of you probably know by now, I am particularly interested in climate change. And what happened was in 2019, I approached the Rural Communities Foundation of Nova Scotia as a donor and asked if we could sort of create a fund, which we call the Community Sparks Fund, specifically to deal with rural communities projects on climate change. So we did a pilot in sort of the very end of 2019, and then of course right into COVID, where we had 7 youth projects that were funded. And just now kind of spent quite a bit of 2020 trying to figure out which directions we wanted to go and how we were going to do it. And the foundation has decided to very, very much expand that program and to make it not just youth-led projects, but also projects led by adults and other, intergenerational aspects. We do still have the youth projects, which we're funding as well. Now, the orientation of the Community Sparks Fund is towards small grants, and our maximum is $5,000 for adult-led grants and $2,000 for youth grants. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why we're doing that. I think the rest of this presentation, I'm actually going to combine the 2 questions that Rosa posed us of connecting with people and communities, and also innovation, because for the Community Sparks Fund, they are absolutely like this. The fund itself, in trying to sort of figure out where my niche was, I had to look at my particular skills, and my particular skills are a little unusual. I was brought up as a scientist. I'm the daughter of physicists, and in fact, my mother actually was one of the scientists who was on the IPCC original climate change report in 2007, talking about climate change and what a huge issue it was. And so there's a lot of this work personally, which is sort of the legacy of my mother, who died this year, to actually get things done on climate change. So one of the advantages that I have is working with climate change. There is a problem, and it's a very clear and exceedingly difficult problem. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, we don't know how to solve it. You cannot actually look at climate change and say, okay, well, we're just going to do these things and it's going to, everything's going to be okay. And you also know, if you know anything about climate change, that you absolutely have to take action. There are no excuses. There is no more time. It has to be done. And I think that is something that is an advantage in a way, because there's more and more sort of folks out there who get that message and are willing to just say, okay, so now what are we going to do? And so part of our hope was to place the Rural Communities Foundation of Nova Scotia in a position so that when those other people start to realize, that, okay, I've got some money and I want to do something about climate change, who's doing something on climate change, that we actually have a program that could potentially be a source for those people to give us money. So what I've tried to do also is try to leverage the relatively small amount that my family was able to give into, a provincial program. And that means talking to anybody else I can find who might have some sort of interest in this. And one of the things that we've been doing is we've been making a lot of cross-sectorial sort of partnerships, because and part of my philosophy, from having worked in science and from having worked in the nonprofit world for a while, I later became an alternative healthcare practitioner. So Joan, I'll be approaching that too, but I have a very wide background. And what I know is that the way that people solve problems is by bringing together a whole bunch of different things and kind of smushing them together and see what happens. So see what emerges. And that whole concept of the emergent solutions is, I think, a really important one, because that allows you to be in a position where you don't actually know what you're going to make before it happens, but you can go with where momentum is. And that's sort of another really important aspect of, I think, our innovation, is that we don't have to convince anybody of anything. We just have to give people the opportunity to do the things that they really want to do. And there's a tremendous amount of power in that, because it means that you've already gotten motivators, and dealing with rural communities and people in rural communities, you're dealing with a whole bunch of individuals who have their specific talents, and they have their specific skill set, and they have their specific connections, and they have their specific relationships with other people in those communities. And if those people are motivated and given a little bit of support, they can do amazing things. So an awful lot of what I see the Community Sparks Foundation doing is sort of giving those individuals within the community enough of a just like a little oomph to get them going. And so we're really about that space, which is, what I phrase it is the space between idea and action. So all kinds of people have ideas about what they might be able to do to actually help in this huge problem. But they just need that little bit of something to make it so that they're it's not just something that they're thinking about, but it's something that they're actually doing. So the more of those different kinds of people that we can activate, the more they can talk to each other and work off of each other, then you get a sort of a growing emergent solution-based space. And that is really important when you're dealing with a specific problem, that you need creativity, you need risk, you need innovation in order to solve. And so a lot of the way that we've structured the grants is to try to foster creativity, innovation, and risk-taking. And that is also a little, I think, unusual. So we've tried to make the applications low stress. That's one of the reasons that we have these sort of low amounts that we're giving to people. So it's not like, oh, I've got a $50,000 grant that I need to make sure, I do right. There is built into the culture the ability to fail, the ability to have a project not work out, and to learn something from it, to talk to other people about what did work out, what didn't work out. So that's also why, as part of our process, we're having sort of project showcases, where we're hoping that the people who get the grants can get together and talk about, not just to other grant recipients, but to other members of the community, what they tried, how it worked, how it didn't work, what they could have done, and what they still want to do. So again, I think that close connection between the connections between people and innovation. And then I just did want to say one thing to I was thinking about Joan and talking that she was talking about being a physiotherapist. When I was an alternative healthcare practitioner, which I've just temporarily given up to work on climate change issues, we thought a great deal about healing. I was actually a Reiki practitioner, and a craniosacral therapist. So how does a person heal? It comes from within. It's not something that other people, actually can manage to tell somebody else how to heal. That healing process is often from holding space, from the therapist in the particular modalities that I practice, holding space for that body to heal itself. And so you can be in a position of not knowing what that person needs, but allowing them to hear their own voices from within themselves about what they need. And so I very explicitly had the approach that I was going to try to do that same thing with communities, you know, to hold the space for them within the members of the community at large, and the community interacting with other communities to find their own solutions and to listen to their own voices. So when we talk about trust-based giving and philanthropy, I think that's right in there in that space of allowing these communities to come up with the projects that they need, to know that they're the people who are the experts inherently about what their community, what's going to work in their community. And then, you know, trying to give them as much leeway as possible about how they do it. And then I'm not quite sure about my time. I thought I was keeping track of the time, but if somebody could give me a...
If you want to conclude your
okay,
section.
right. So, you know, I think those are the main things. And also just knowing that every individual has something that is their piece that they can uniquely give to this very serious issue. So however it is, whatever it is, finding that way for those people to express that piece goes a lot further than just saying everybody needs to wear a sweater or whatever it is. Everybody needs to find that place where they feel valued and where they feel a part of the overall effort. And that's been really helpful.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan, and thank you to all three of our speakers. So we've reached the point of Q&A. We have about 10 or so minutes, and maybe I'll ask the audience first if they've got any questions. You're welcome to type your question into the chat or to turn on your microphone and ask your question.